What happens when life throws challenges our way? Do we go about them alone or do we lean on a team? Teamwork isn't just about success. It's about resilience. From sports to business to personal life. Strong teams help us bounce back stronger. In today's episode, we are going to talk about some strategies that help build resilience through teamwork. Stick with us. Hey everyone, John here. 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 Welcome to the Leaders Leading Leaders podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to the Leaders Leading Leaders podcast. I am your host, John Espinosa. I'm excited about this episode on building resilience through teamwork, and it's entitled United We Stand. We need each other more than ever. I tell my teams all the time, we're stronger together. Individually, we may be able to go faster, but in order to go farther, we need each other. So in today's episode, we're going to dig into some strategies that can unlock your team performance in overcoming resilience. One of the things that I want to throw out there just in the beginning is this isn't just about leading a team in business or leading a team professionally. You can look at this leading a team as a father, as a mother, as a grandparent, in your school, in your community, wherever you are leading teams, you are going to face challenges, and building that resilience muscle can help your team overcome these challenges together and actually come out the other side stronger for it. So let's dig into the topics for today. The first topic I want to talk about is communication. And in this example, communication is going to be the foundation for resilience. And I will tell you why. 1, effective communication builds trust. It reduces misunderstanding. Notice I said the word effective communication. What does that look like, John? Trust building happens through modeling what you are saying. So people build trust around behavior, not necessarily around the words that are coming out of your mouth. So if you communicate something, especially in a challenging time, you better back that up with behavior. You better show up when you say you're going to show up. You better communicate as often as you say you're going to communicate in every aspect. That is going to help you build trust. That is what I mean by effective communication builds trust and it reduces misunderstanding. Patience is a virtue for a reason. In communication, it is vital to reducing misunderstanding. We can't just deliver the message and expect everybody to hear the message the same way. We have to pause, and we're going to talk about some applications here in a little bit to make sure that there is clarity, which will reduce understanding. The second point here is when we get into high pressure situations, this could be a conflict situation. It could be a short deadline. It could be a move for your family. It could be a disruption in your team. Maybe somebody is leaving, another person is coming, whatever that looks like. High pressure situations, we need to have clarity and honesty, which will prevent breakdowns in communication. So again, back to that first point, you got to have a little patience. You have to create some clarity. By creating clarity, that's just not a one-way street. Clarity is a two-way street when it comes to making sure that everybody is congruent with what you're saying, what they're interpreting, and what they need to go execute. Does that make sense? So let's get into some practical applications because I think this is going to really click. So this is the time you want to take out your pen. You want to take out your notes. Remember, I want this to be an active listening podcast, not just a passive listening podcast. So here we go. First, check-in meetings. Check-in meetings are important. And you can do daily huddles. You can do weekly huddles. You can do monthly huddles. It depends on how much work your team is doing. Will probably depend on your huddle. For me, 30 minutes at the max. If you need 30 minutes, put it on your calendar. Call it a huddle. I call mine just a short huddle. When you think of a huddle, what is it? Sports teams huddle before plays to discuss the play, to go over any issues. That's exactly what we're doing here. They're check-in meetings. One of the best questions that I like to ask is, what do you need from who? That gets people talking. It gets things moving. It gets things unstuck. It makes sure that if there's a coming deadline that we're set to achieve it. Brings up those things that naturally or organically won't come up in conversation. So who needs what from who during your check-in goes a long way. Second application here, active listening. This is a big piece of around the clarity and reducing misunderstandings. It's important, and you need to model this as leaders, as parents, wherever you're trying to reduce misunderstanding. It is very important that we make sure that active listening is in place. I always summarize what I heard. That way, everybody's on the same page. The sender of the information gets to clarify if I misunderstood it. I'm taking notes. If there's an action there, you do an action. If there's a date there, you do a date. That way, everybody's on that same page. So active listening, a good way to do that is have team members. You model it yourself first, and then guess what? They will start doing it. I promise they will do as you do, not as you say. Okay. Second thing, crisis response. This is something that I like to do during the good times. If you have a slow time in your business, I don't know many businesses that have slow times, but it's not a time when you're in the thick of it, when you're going through a challenge. But I will model a crisis situation. I will put the team through an exercise where maybe there's a conflict between two team members. Maybe there's a disagreement between something that I've said and a belief that somebody has. That is a perfect time for you all to work through that resilience muscle, to build that resilience muscle and get out anything that possibly could go wrong during the times that are going well. Does that make sense? So again, it's this crisis response. Think of it as if you were responding or practicing for a drill, an emergency drill. I worked in the hospital. We used to do a lot of practice scenarios where you'd have a level 1 trauma come in or a stabbing dropped off on the outside. I worked in the emergency room, or a hazmat incident. That's no different. We did it when there wasn't that incident going on, but it was that automaticity that we were building. So we were making sure that when that time came, we all understood, we were comfortable with that situation because we had been there before. All right. So communication is the foundation of resilience. The second point I want to talk to you all about today is the shared responsibility, which strengthens the whole team. And as I was journaling about this today, I've been a part of a lot of great teams. I've led great teams. I've been able to consult with great teams and great organizations. And one thing that I see familiar, and I notice themes, I notice trends whenever I work with others, because human beings are human beings. And there's one thing that is consistent, is that in the face of a good challenge, a deep threat, and you're building that resilience muscle, people tend to fall back to what they're used to. So this is all about shared responsibility and how teams that distribute the responsibility are better to adapt to setbacks. And we're going to get into some practical applications about how we can distribute, or how I have distributed responsibility through my teams, or encouraged or coached or mentored others to do that as well. The second point here under shared responsibility strengthens the whole team is it avoids burnout. It increases accountability. And the weak link doesn't bring down the whole entire team, okay? So if we distribute responsibility across the team, if you got a weak link in the team, or maybe it's just a bad week, or somebody decides to retire because they hit the lottery, or somebody has an illness or a death in the family that they have to tend to, because we have distributed that shared responsibility, that's less of an impact. We are more prepared for a setback. So let's get into some practical applications here. First thing, cross-train, role rotations. I like to do this, especially when you have semi-similar job functions. And if you have a primary, just single point of failure, you have to figure out who can at least back up that person. I didn't say do the job as well, but back up that person. So cross-train across the organization. You can accommodate this with checklists, processes, systems, standard operating procedures, whatever you want to call it. Think of it as a playbook for your organization, for your team. Backup quarterback, starter, gets hurt. Guess what? Backup has to come in. Are they going to run that offense as good? Probably not, but they're going to still be able to run the offense. That's what I'm talking about when it comes to cross-training. Role rotations. If you got to rotate people around, go sit with John for a day. Kind of see what and observe what he does, and then point them to where the playbook is, where those procedures are, where your processes are. Make sense? The second thing here, support systems. So I always like to pair people together especially when you got somebody coming in. But at the beginning of each year, I identify a lead and a co-lead. That's my way of inherently pairing people together. What happens with that? They can hold each other accountable. And it's part of that cross-training. And if one goes down, the starter goes down, the backup is ready to step in, right? So you kind of see where I'm going. Pair people up. People do great in pairs. Three's a crowd sometimes, so keep it to pairs. Have them shared responsibility. Make sure you define the roles in there around that clarity, reduce that misunderstanding, and then let them develop and nurture that relationship. You'd be surprised where that goes. Third application for shared responsibility, strengthening the whole team, is delegation framework. This is where you have to know about your organization. You don't have to know the subject matter expertise. You don't have to know the intricacies of what everybody does. But as a leader, you do have to make sure, are the right people doing the right things? Now let me say that again because it's very important. Write this down. Ask yourself, as a leader, are the right people doing the right things? If the answer is maybe, good for you. If it's no, that's when you got to go back in, redelegate some work, redelegate some tasks, go back to your pairs, go back to that cross-training. Who else can do that work? Okay? You see where I'm going here with this strengthening the whole team, dispersing the work across the whole entire team, the whole family, the whole group, the whole board. Whatever you're leading, whatever your team looks like, use these principles of dispersing the work to strengthen the entire team. So you don't have a weak link. Everybody understands a little bit about what each other does. And the other big ticket here, the other win that you're going to get as a leader, everybody appreciates what each other does. So it doesn't matter whether they're the low person or the highest paid individual on that team, there is a shared appreciation for the work, the effort, and the person that is doing that work. Big, huge win for leaders. The last thing I want to talk about when it comes to building resiliency through teamwork is this resilient mindset and the fact that it is built through team encouragement. We need each other to get through the tough times. We need each other when the challenges get tough. There are too many times where we celebrate together, but we go through sorrow, we go through struggles alone. Don't let this be a time, especially as you are building resiliency through teamwork, where we don't all lean on each other. So, resilient mindset is built through team encouragement. Teams that support each other emotionally handle challenges better. You might be asking yourself, why is that? If people connect, if people understand who they're working with, what makes them tick, how they work, their kids' names, their family, where they come from, aren't you going to be more willing to go above and beyond for that individual? I know I sure am. So that's why it's important that we support each other emotionally. And then encouragement fosters this growth mindset, and failure becomes a redirection. It doesn't become a blame game. I've seen a lot of teams get into the blame game and less about the encouragement and the pat on the back and, hey, help each other up, we'll go get them next time type of talk, instead of looking at failure as a redirection. And that's what encouragement will provide. So let's get into the applications to help build that resilient mindset through team encouragement. The first one I want to talk about here is celebrating those small wins. You all hear me talk about all the time about celebrating the small wins, celebrating the small successes. Don't wait until you get to the finish line to say thank you, to say I'm proud of you, to acknowledge people for their hard work. Do it along the way. This encourages the team. It needs to start from you, the leader, and then it will take off like a wildfire. I promise you, you can sit back 6 months down the road and just watch as they encourage each other, as they celebrate each other. It's just a great feeling when you as a leader can see that and experience that. And I want that for each and every one of you out there in the Go Be Great community. The second part is open feedback. Whenever a team can talk openly and give each other feedback that is constructive and not criticism, you know you're doing something right. This goes back to that crisis exercise that we talked about in the first segment. Communication is the foundation to resilience. Put each other in that conflict mode, or there's classes out there that you can take, or books that you can read, or podcasts that you can watch on conflict, and then have a conversation about it. Discuss your differences and how important that is for a team to be diverse in its thoughts. Be open to feedback, one as the leader, and I promise you, your team will be open to feedback from you. You have to display it in order for them to understand it and to create some buy-in. So open feedback is the second application there. And then resilience training. So again, this mindfulness, creating that resilience muscle, talking about resilience, encouraging people, all of this comes through whenever you are in the thick of things. But you don't want to wait until you're in the thick of things. You want to make sure that you have built that muscle to where when the times get tough, when it's fourth down in 12 yards and you put the ball in the backup quarterback's hands, you have confidence in the team that they will get the job done. They will overcome the challenge that is in front of them. So let's recap what we've been talking about here when it comes to building resilience through teamwork. The first topic we talked about, communication is at the foundation of resiliency. So make sure that you are creating clarity. You're clearing up any misunderstandings. Goes back to that effective communication. Be a good active listener and have that patience. The second one was shared responsibility that strengthens the whole team. This is dispersing that work throughout the team, cross-training, buddying people up, having accountability partners. And then last, resilient mindset is built through team encouragement. Encourage each other, lean on each other, build exercise around resiliency to strengthen the team, so that way when the going gets tough, they are going to pull together. They are not going to separate. They're going to lean on each other. They're going to depend on each other. Even when you are not there, I promise they will get through the toughest of times. If you accomplish all three of those key topics that we talked about today, and my challenge to you is to take one of the applications and put it to practice. Put it into use next week. Deal? Deal. So let's wrap this up. You know, one thing that I would just preface, resilient teams aren't built overnight. It goes back to that patience. You have to continually encourage your team. You have to continually show what effective communication looks like. You need to be consistent whenever you delegate work and you hold people accountable for what they're supposed to be doing. It's not built overnight. So have a little patience as a leader. But I promise you, when it clicks, because it will click, it's the greatest thing ever. I hope this helps somebody today out there that may have been struggling with teamwork or is in a big challenge and they need a little bit of resiliency. I promise, implement these strategies and your team will thrive during the good times and the bad times. I believe in you. Go be great. Talk to everyone later. Bye-bye. If you like what you're hearing, do us a favor, click on that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, or leave a comment. That lets us know that what we are putting out benefits you. If you want additional information or resources or learn how to work with me, head on over to thejohnespinosa.com, because when we become better versions of ourselves, it helps us get others to where they're going. Go be great. Talk to everyone later.